if you go all the way back on my YouTube channel, the first videos are literally me with a camera in my car on the way to the job that I disliked. And it was just me talking about initial business topics or like the things that I was literally going through, just like
Mm.
authentic, almost like documentation of the ability to build rapport and go deep with people very quickly and build those connections. Like I feel like I could kind of talk to anybody and kind of get that.
Welcome to Marketing by Design, where you and I learned from our favorite founders and marketers on how they built their success and told their stories by design. I am your host, Andy Milligan. Let's get started. If you guys ever wondered what happens when you create nothing but free, valuable content for years and years and years, and all of a sudden you realize you have nothing to sell? Mark Szymanski is a close friend of mine. I don't think we've ever had a conversation that didn't really end up being a Rogan podcast of sorts, but I want to introduce him to the Marketing by Design audience today. Mark is a founder, a content creator, and a genuine, just helpful person. It's hard for me to put into one intro everything that this guy's taught me. In my life, he's kind of a older brother slash mentor. I hope that's not weird for me to say, Mark, if you're listening. But Mark, I've discovered through content. When I first came across Mark, he was doing a daily content challenge over on YouTube. And I was just enamored by the fact that he could eloquently speak his words. He was getting across very almost complex ideas that he was working through in his own mind and his own business through in such a captivating format, like on shorts. Speaking of YouTube, Mark has a channel that he's been active on for years and years, starting in the WordPress space, and now he is the foremost leader in my network on AI, systems, and marketing. It's been really interesting for me to see Mark's story unfold over the past couple months as he's gotten clarity on his own business. And it's a very real problem that a lot of high performers come across when you realize that your North Star for all these years has just been helpful, resourceful, and valuable to those in your audience without realizing that you have a business to run and you actually have to collect at some point. I hope you guys learned as much from him as I have in this episode. Like I said, he's just a genuinely interesting dude and such a high performer in his own right. Getting ready to become a father here soon. So expect some more dad content on the entrepreneurship side. I don't know. You have to follow Mark and find out. But to get in touch with Mark, head over to motive11.com, which is his agency. Head over to his YouTube channel, which will also be linked below. He also has two YouTube channels, Mark Szymanski 1 and 2. You're a real OG if you're a subscriber to the second channel, which I am. So you can join a real cool crew over there. And he also has one of my favorite podcasts that I have not missed an episode to in the last several months called Fueled by Progress. I was recently a guest on Mark's show. It was one of my favorite interviews of all time. He literally gave me my Hall of Fame interview that I want broadcasted at my funeral. So that'll be a link below as well, and I highly encourage you to check that out. So that's enough for me. Let's get straight into entry 136 of Marketing by Design. But before we do, I want to share a free resource that I've created just for you. It's the highest converting website's visual swipe file in Notion. Approaching a website redesign and knowing what good looks like is a very vulnerable place to be. A lot of times we don't know where to start, and the most productive thing you can do is start from a place that's proven to work. So I've compiled a visual collection of some of the high converting websites, homepages, and sections and layouts, and I put them into a visual swipe file that you can filter by CTA, color scheme, and industry, so you know that you're starting a place that's relevant to you and is proven to work. This was so much intensive work to put together, and I highly encourage you guys to take me up on downloading that. That'll be in the first link below, along with all of Mark's information. Let's get straight into the podcast. Please welcome Mark Szymanski by Design.
I appreciate you having me, Andy. Thank you so much, brother. Yeah, I mean, just a quick little snapshot of how I got here. I am 29 years old. I was around the time like that. I was exiting college. I had like an internship, and I was working around guys that were building a full stack at a real estate agency on like ASP.NET. So they were building like this full product that they were deploying at the agency. I was in the middle of the technology and marketing department at the time, and I was like, let me try to build something with ASP.NET, like just a personal brand website. That lasted about 5 minutes. But I went to school for computer science at one point, and then it ended up being information science. So right in the middle of people and technology. So when I was at that internship trying that, they're like, why don't you go try WordPress? So then I tried WordPress and immediately, found tools like Elementor and other like page building type things. And the rest is history on the WordPress side because I've been using it ever since. built myself a website, started building other people websites during like freelance projects, and ultimately led into like more of an agency mindset. And yeah, I would say left my job right before COVID, and then ultimately have been doing that ever since. And like the next chapter was about 2 years ago at this point, where I started getting the community aspect of WordPress, which we could talk about for days because that's even bigger than just the people using it. And I started making content, and that's when like I really started to connect with a lot of people doing similar work and similar things as me. And that was the next big chapter, I would say, not just building websites for customers, but also connecting with the people that are literally making the products. And, that whole ecosystem is like a whole thing in and of itself. So yeah, now I'm here and I make content, still do agency work, still make content. And yeah, just trying to figure out what the next chapter is as we continue to grow here.
Yeah, we all are. Is there anything you can say about like the beginning in terms of how early on did you know you wanted to? I think we talked a little bit in our last chat, but how early on did you know that you wanted to leave the job and kind of build your own thing? A lot of people just kind of have it in their head as a default to where I'm always going to get a job. I'm always on the search. I'm always filling out applications. Um, and a lot of people kind of have it set from the beginning if they want to be some sort of an entrepreneur, XYZ. They don't know exactly what it'll look like. What camp did you kind of fall in terms of knowing where you fit in on that spectrum?
So we got to go even further back then. So when I when I was born in 1996, my grandmother started a restaurant. She opened a restaurant in 1991. My mother was instrumental in that. She was pretty much like essentially the co-owner. I mean, she was managing everything from the get-go, and she kind of like instilled within me like obviously a hard work ethic, my father too, but like that was I was around business from a very young age. I don't necessarily know if that it played definitely some sort of a role, but I don't remember like I hear all these stories all the time of people either, oh, I was always destined for business. I was selling all sorts of stuff when I was in like middle school and high school. I don't really remember myself doing that, but I was always around entrepreneurship and hard work from my entire adolescence because I was working at that diner restaurant, and that's kind of I think the big origin story for me. Um, but yeah, I mean, I didn't really realize like my plan and what happened was I went to college, and in like later years of college I was doing that internship, and right then I started watching some Gary Vee and other, creators like that. I was like, "Oh, this could be cool to have a personal brand and do my own thing." But it really didn't actually manifest until I found a skill that I could turn into a job, which ultimately that's a conversation in of itself. Like if you have a skill and you want to turn it into like a business, there's a lot of hurdles you need to get through to actually turn it into a real solid business. You don't just want to create a job for yourself. And honestly, I'm
Mm,
definitely guilty of that, especially in the earlier years. I'm getting over it now a little bit, but that's kind of how it really started. It wasn't the two things that I hear all the time. It wasn't, oh, I'm selling random stuff to people in middle school.
yeah.
I was supposed to be an entrepreneur. It wasn't that for me.
Hmm.
It also wasn't the idea where, oh, I lost everything or I was like in the worst place possible and I have to make something for myself to dig myself out of it. I've been pretty blessed and it's like I've been comfortable, and I don't know, I just the biggest thing was like I can't work for somebody else if I had to boil it down to something. I just
Yeah.
at some point I was like, I don't want to be an employee. So that's probably the main reason.
Yeah. You said something I want to double click on before we go too far
Mhm,
past it is the idea of taking one skill and turning that into a business. Um,
mhm.
what do you think that skill is for you? Knowing what you know right now, I think if I would have asked maybe a past version of you, you would have said WordPress and kind of branded yourself underneath that. But what does that look like for you now? Is it more on the WordPress side, or is it more on the connection side, or is it more on the content creation side, personal branding? Where would you plant your flag?
Yeah, I mean at the very first inkling, it definitely was like, "Oh, I'm learning how to build websites. People need websites. I can charge people to build websites." Like, that's like, you're literally creating a job for yourself. I mean, a business in a
Mm,
sense, but, like, you're doing all the work, you're doing the selling, you're doing the fulfillment. So, the technical skill was building websites. As I've gone through it, I think even more naturally for me, it was creating content in the sense of just literally talking and conversating.
Mm,
I remember when I was if you go all the way back on my YouTube channel, the first videos are literally me with a camera in my car on the way to the job that I disliked, and it was just me talking about literally like life, the initial business topics, or like the things that I was literally going through, just like
mm.
authentic, almost like documentation of what I was kind of happening there. So if there's a way to, obviously people monetize that, that would be another skill there that I feel like would be it. Um, but yeah, that web design was the main technical skill. At this point, though, I think the thing that's most valuable that potentially I do is the ability to build rapport and go deep with people very quickly and build those connections with the people that are around me that are honestly, they don't even need to be in the same industry. Like, I feel like I could kind of talk to anybody and kind of get that, and I have that ability, which is more of an it's definitely more of a soft, intangible skill than it is a technical skill, but I do think that that's a big piece of what I do now and what I wanna continue to leverage amongst the other things that I'm working on.
Agree. I think part of it is seeing like these some because we're not very few of us, especially people that have a lot of interests and are good at a lot of things subjectively. We don't actually we have to take the time to like say, okay, what are some of the commonalities skill set wise that are making me good at like
Mhm.
these different things? That makes sense. So I think even on the agency side, you're good at that because you can communicate, you can go deep with people, you can understand needs and tie that to outcomes. But then on the website, you have the technical knowledge of like the curiosity, the connecting, the going deep on the technical stuff in and of itself to then be able to add the value to the person afterwards. I think what a lot of people miss is that have you ever read The E Myth by Michael Gerber?
I don't know if I've read it cover to cover, but I've definitely heard it in bits and pieces, yeah. It's on the list.
Yeah. That I've referenced that so many times, but it's basically this idea of a woman named Sarah who owns a pie who's like known for making pies, and she starts a business making pies. And the long story short, she ends up hating her life, and she finds her way out of it through meeting with this guy. But there's so many people that, especially in AMA, people that are marketers that they maybe want to freelance, they maybe want to build an agency, they maybe want to be lean solo consultant, like finding what they actually want to do. They think that the sign that they like the technical side is the fact that that's what they should build a business around. That's not always the best decision. Because the moment you start to charge for something, the moment you make it a majority of your schedule, you put a lot of pressure on it. It's not. It changes your relationship with it in a big way. Um, and I think even more and more, I've only been a founder for 2 years, but the more and more I get into it, like the more and more I'm like reverting back to my habits of doing what I was doing before money was ever in the picture. Things like journaling, things like exercising, things like um, connecting and having conversations, like stuff that doesn't actually pay the bills. But I'm just like more and more craving the stuff that wasn't financially motivated to begin with. Um, and I know we talked last time about that being something that was a really positive signal to me and why I wanted to connect with you and reach out is that you seem to have this intuition that you're doing the thing that you enjoy and the financial pressure behind everything isn't what's fueling the puck. And I respect the hell out of you for that personally. But can you talk a little bit about maybe where that comes from?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. It's funny that you're bringing it up because I think this actually manifests in what I kind of have two things going on. So I have like Szymanski Media, which is like one pillar of stuff that I do, and I kind of bucket all the content, all the consulting, the all of that stuff over there. And then I have Find It Tech, which is like the first, main business that I started to build websites and do digital marketing for. And I actually think that this manifests itself much more in the Szymanski Media side because again, like I said, I've been building these relationships and creating this content, tutorial content, news related, whatever, WordPress content for like 2 years now. And when you do that at scale in a niche that's like not that big, then immediately people start asking, "Hey, can you do videos for us? Can you like XYZ whatever for like some amount of money and whatever?" And I've, even as recently as the beginning of this year, taken money for things that I want to do. Like people are giving you money to do something that you're doing, which is great. But I've quickly come to realize that even if you're getting paid for certain things, and I never understood this before because I would have like people come to me like, "Oh, I love taking pictures, but I don't want to be a photographer." And it's
Mhm.
like there is a weird middle thing that you have to learn about yourself where sometimes just because you like doing something, you don't actually want to get paid for it. You or when you start getting paid for it, the way that it's actually manifesting now and the way you have to do it is kind of like being a little perverted, like in that
Yeah.
based on what you initially, were doing, right? As soon as I feel like I'm taking money for certain, videos or certain like integrations or anything like that, it literally like money comes in and then I put it on my list and I'm like, I absolutely do not want to do this. And it's like it sounds shitty because certain people be like, "Oh man, you're getting paid to make videos. That's amazing." But honestly, it's not that glamorous if you value authenticity, integrity,
Mhm.
and just like the stuff that you want to do. Because and again, we're not talking anything crazy here, right? These are SaaS products mostly. But still the point is that I don't want to be my channel is my name. So like I can't fuck that up. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear here, but I can't mess that up, right?
Yeah.
So so if I do mess that up on any level, when it's something like that, it's not something that I'm keen on doing. And I've just experienced it, like I said, completely firsthand now. And it's like I gotta be more careful with what I do there because I could put out as much content as I want, but it's gotta be authentic and it's gotta be like things that I'm actually excited about doing.
Yeah.
And that's
I
how a lot of big creators do it.
I think
Yeah.
we're having this conversation at a very good time, especially when we're both kind of, well, everyone's financially motivated, but now I think especially we're kind of in tandem with setting like very specific goals and outcomes around what we want revenue finances to look like. And I will tell you, dude, it can happen so easily to that becomes the motivator that then leads to the bad decisions that lead to the bad outcomes. So I worded that really badly. Basically, when you have a financial goal, it changes the inputs to then reach that goal, which it should. But then, for example, case in point, like you just said, you feel like there's a disconnect between you change from like, okay, so two examples. Say I'm building a website for a business and I'm happy about it. I'm happy I got this project because it gets me closer to my revenue goal versus I'm building a website for a company because I'm happy about it because it's growing their business. It's going to get them leads. It's going to benefit the rest of their company. It's going to pay their employees. You feel a lot better in the second scenario than you do in the first one. Because I have been on both sides. Like I've done free work and I've done work that I took on at a much lower rate because I shouldn't have taken it on and I wanted to actually help. And I've taken projects on where I was jaded by the project value and size. I can imagine it's the same thing. I want to talk a little bit about brand partnerships and some of the outreach you're doing there too. Um, but I can imagine it's totally the same on the brand side because we're in this position being kind of a lean consultant, small agency model where you get the work and you still still have to do the work. For the most part, I think we both have a couple contractors, but
Mhm.
when you're at that position, it's still really hard to connect inputs during the day to like the bigger picture grand vision. And so like what I've been trying to do, even when I do have a financial goal, I'm not thinking about dollars and cents. I'm thinking about this duplex in Columbus that's going to allow me to build a networking organization, go to coffees with people, and be able to help people in a more articulate vision. This project that I'm doing, this work that I'm doing on the site, is going to fund that. It's going to create that opportunity, and that's been a big mental shift for me, especially lately. When I mean, I started the year with a six-figure revenue goal, and I got burnt out so fast because that's all I was focused on was that stupid ass spreadsheet. And I
Mm.
see so many people go down that. Um, so I'm stoked for both of our financial goals, and we'll definitely I'll jam on that more later. But I want to circle the conversation to WordPress because I told you this was going to be so hard to keep
Mhm.
on
Mhm.
topic. Um, but when I came on your show, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we talked a little bit about the different generations in terms of web marketing agencies. Our mutual friend Chris, he sort of sits on the, not to call him old, but the of the three of us, he is the old
Mm,
guy.
mm,
Where it's custom solutions, antiquated WordPress, a lot of dense technical knowledge, and like enterprise solutions. And that's very much on the right side. Used a lot of custom code, directories. I picture like a lot of library websites. Not that that's a bad thing, but
mhm.
something on that end. And then we have me on this sort of entry level beginning end. I'm 2 years into the agency, and I use a lot of low code development tools. Work very quickly, focused on design, UI, interactivity, and also a little bit of marketing stuff on the back end that allows it to be an asset for the business. And I see you as someone in the middle to where you're you have a lot of connections in this Chris ecosystem with WordPress, with custom solutions, with all the page builders. You've made content about it. You know this stuff forwards and backwards. But you're also at this position where you're talking to people like Andy, and you see what they're doing, and you're like, man, like I'm seeing some cool stuff coming out of Framer, WordPress, or Webflow, lower code development tools, and also AI loops its way in there somewhere. So I want you to talk a little bit about where you think how your opinions are formed kind of in the WordPress space, where it currently sits, and sort of everything that's going on in the agency realm in terms of what I just said.
Yeah, it's a big topic. So a little bit of the backstory, and I wasn't there for this because I was 7 years old. I feel like when WordPress was like first getting its start, but like yeah, early 2000s, right? So I'm gonna try to paint a picture for you as best as I can. Early 2000s, WordPress is released. I'm not going to give you the entire history of the preamble, but I need you to understand the context for people that are listening that probably haven't used WordPress and only just know like the outside perspective. But I've been behind the lines, not enemy lines, but behind the lines and in the thick of this for a while now that I've like asked so many questions and feel like I've almost been there, secondhand. Early 2000s WordPress comes out. It's like, beginning dawns of the internet. Obviously, it's been around for a little bit, but nobody's really like if you're building websites, you're like heavily into code, like you're in the thick of it. WordPress was one of those first things that could actually give I don't want to say lay people, but closer to lay people the option to at least build something like blog, get their thoughts out there on the open web, right? Matt Mullenweg founded it with other people, and he was like, okay, we're going to give them, there's a whole story around that, but like, I mean, we're going to give them a place to publish on the internet. That's like the simplest way to put it.
Mhm.
You have to
And
understand.
quick
Yeah, go
pause
ahead.
just for the listeners.
Yeah,
WordPress is open source, whereas a lot of maybe the newer
yeah.
platforms aren't open source. That could be helpful context just for the listeners.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, obviously, we open source is another huge thing, but, like, basically, like, you kind of own it. It's more of your platform. There's a whole WordPress.com.org thing that we don't need to get into, but ultimately, like, you could deploy WordPress.org, and it's, like, fully your code, even though you don't have to manage it the code piece necessarily. It's, the easiest way to explain is, like, Webflow or whatever closed platform could, like, turn you off at any time, where WordPress.org is just kind of there's a little bit more freedom and again open source. You can see the code, you can contribute to it, but it's a hard topic to get into if you're not really into that. But that we'll put that there. It is an important point. It's actually something we struggle to kind of like explain to people because there's a lot, kind of there or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
but anyway, so you have to put yourself in the shoes, right? This is a lot of I don't know if empathy is the right word, but it's a lot of like perspective and understanding. Imagine that you are between the ages of 20 and 30 in or even like even a little early, like 18 to 30 in early 2000s when this is coming up, or even like approaching 2010, like in the very dawn of all this. If you knew about this, you would be geeked out of your mind. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you would be like, "Oh my gosh, I can put stuff on the internet now, like and I can have my own blog, my own space and it's easy. I don't have to like go super deep into coding, but I could if I want like you are geeked, okay? So imagine that as all this starts to happen, this snowball keeps rolling. Really, honestly, I'm not taking anything away from Matt Mullenweg and the team that has put all this together and all the contributors. But seriously, like this is one of those things where like the timing is almost the biggest part of all of this, right? It's like good idea, good foundation, good development, everything, but also the timing. If you don't have that happen right then, maybe it doesn't take off like it does. So you have effectively, the best illustration and visualization is a lot of people that are really excited about the open web and publishing on the internet in general and building things. They are literally sitting around like a campfire type style thing, is like at at word camps or other community events. I'm not exactly sure when those all started, but I want to say like
Huh.
2010-ish range, right? But you have these community events that are spinning up, and this community of people that are contributing to this project, the WordPress project, around that time. You cannot discount, this is 20 years ago, you cannot discount how passionate and how much emotion those people have in this project over that 20-year period, especially when they were like, possibly your age, Andy, right? Like 24 years old. And they're just
Mhm.
passionate about something like this, building this thing and contributing and doing all this, right? So
Mhm.
when you hear now, 20 years later, and there's Webflow and there's Framer and all that sort of stuff, that is one thing that you have to have. You want the insider golden nugget knowledge. When you talk to somebody that's maybe 40, 45, I mean, I've talked to people all around the age range. You have to understand that that is literally what they built their internet chops on, a lot of them. That's the thing that was the big thing right then. And then so many friends and so many other community events and stuff like that happen as this whole thing is building, and as the internet is still kind of like a barren, not a barren wasteland, but kind of in some ways shapes or form was. And this thing is the thing that's bringing stuff to life and populating
Mm.
the internet in a lot of ways. So I don't want to go super deep on it, but like that's literally the backstory of why WordPress is what WordPress is now. However, obviously, times change, things evolve, things get easier in some ways, or products and just technology continues to evolve. So now you have Webflow, you have Framer, you have Shopify, you have all these other SaaS-based tools where people were like, okay, WordPress is cool, but I'm going to make something very specific, a product for individual specific scenarios. Shopify is the easiest one, to sell stuff online very easily. And now you have a bunch of different fragmentation. WordPress, everybody still likes to claim, is still 43% of the internet is, is built on WordPress. Um, and I still think it's very robust, and I use it. And if you know how to use it, like, I mean, there's really no reason to go anywhere else because you can do almost anything with it just because of the whole story I just told you. But that is kind of the lay of the land as far as how people have gotten here with WordPress and what it's like. The big disconnect is that now we have younger people, even younger than I, people like you, Andy, that maybe have you know, um, they don't know that story, and they don't have any of that
Mm.
perspective on the whole thing, which is fine because they can write their own story. But the whole thing is like they haven't even tried it when it's still a very viable solution, but maybe they're having success, like you with your agency. Maybe you're having success with like a Webflow or whatever else. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to tell people to ruin their business change platforms or whatever. But,
Mhm.
you always do want to keep an eye on like what's upcoming or what's still out there. So I don't know if that really answered the question, but I've tried to give
Mm.
you a lot of
Yep.
context there on the WordPress stuff. And we can dive into any specific part of it. But that is literally like, if you really zoom out, that is what I've learned heavily. And you learn all of that if you get in the community and ask questions, which not saying anybody has to, but that's what my life has been consumed with over the past like 2.5 years. So yeah.
Yes. Okay, that context is so helpful for anyone
Mhm,
listening.
mhm,
Also for myself too, because you come up, and this is the exact. I promise you, this is not the analogy I'm making. Isn't Don't take it one to one with like what it means and what it's coming from. Um, if you were like connecting with like the initial passion that WordPress people had when like the first time you click publish on a personal blog, you feel like this huge sense of emotional empowerment, like fulfillment, like holy shit, like I am like this is the tool, and you gain that connection with the tool stack that allows you to do that. So I can understand, and I think another mistake people make whenever this conversation comes up is they don't isolate the conversation to the tools and like the tools themselves, because they start to get personal, and it's like, okay, well, can we have under context of where other people are coming from? It makes it a lot easier to understand why this stuff happens. So I can relate that to like the first time I, started using design tools. You have a transformational shift where like I'm picturing this thing and I just brought it to life. you associate a lot of inherent value and attachment to what made that possible for you, because you got this fulfillment from doing this thing, and the tool you associate is what you associate with what allows you to do that. It's what empowered you. So I can understand when people get emotional about, yeah, times change, etc. But it's really about what you're most comfortable with, what you can make money doing, because there's a switching cost to all these things. You're gonna go back and forth. So all that said, my intention by saying that is saying understand where context of how businesses have already built their IP, how they've already built their client base, how they're currently adding value to their clients, and isolate the argument to what the tools are and what they allow you to do, and also the other nuances that go into it. So that context does help a lot. Um, from and also like how you got started too. The last thing I'll say, I we talked about last time is like I got into this because I had a fundamental lack in my own skill set, and the tools are what empowered me to be able to reach that phase a lot quicker. Like from a design background, the low development tools like Framer, Webflow, WordPress are what gave me the ability to say like, okay, I actually can do this web thing, and I actually can make money, and I actually can add value to businesses without having to know this fundamental skill and shortcoming that I didn't have before. Um, so I think like I think that's honestly why the conversation gets emotional at all, is because people connect a lot of value to what they feel empowers them. And when you slander something that empowers people, there's, you rise a defensive argument. So, yeah, man, I get that a lot.
Yeah. I mean, well, the only other thing I'll say there too is like, when you're first getting started, either, you know, for you and I or whatever, like it's like when we're young, but even like if you're older and you need to like relearn or you need to learn a new skill or something, right? Like maybe you change jobs and you're like, okay, I want to try to start my own business. Like whatever you find and you go deep on, you're now going to have almost like a bias. Most people are going to have a bias to this because I learned WordPress and I learned like Elementor at first. It's like, okay, well now, a couple years into using that, it's like, okay, I use this, I know it like really well, and I can build whatever. Okay, well, if you're deep in the WordPress community, at some point somebody's going to tell you like, hey, you could use like bricks or you could use XYZ or whatever, and you could, enhance you can enhance like the things that you could build your you can open more doors to like how much control you have over your project or whatever, even in a visual environment. But now, like you're talking about the switching cost of changing that, you have to be of the right mindset in that situation. Like you have to make a good business decision, but you have to be in the right mindset to even give that any attention or any look, right? Like a lot of people are going to be like, I know how to use this tool. I work with people that this tool is perfectly capable for, therefore I don't need to change. Okay, fine. If that's the case, then I'm not here to tell you you should or shouldn't. Um, even if objectively, a different tool gives you more options or whatever. Like, I mean, I could look at you and I could say, hey, listen, like Webflow really well, or maybe not, right? But like Webflow really well, right? Because you've been using it, da da da, whatever. Maybe WordPress would give you more control or more robustness or XYZ or whatever, and could open up some roadblocks that you have hit in the past with Webflow. But if you don't actually need to change, then it is what it is. I mean, it's just human nature. It's like familiarity. It's bias towards the things that we know, and until we're ready. And I was going to talk about this. We can talk about this when we get back to the setting goals and all that. At some point, you need like an actual catalyst to get yourself to move on whatever it is. I feel like it's in many different
Mm,
areas of business and life, but until you
mm,
actually have a real catalyst, like that was the real reason that that I've moved every single time in my, WordPress like page building career or whatever. It's like anytime I needed to change my stack or learn something new, it was because I came up against a blocker that I couldn't get over, and only at
yeah.
that point. So you're not what I'm saying is everybody wants to get better and improve and change, but sometimes you're not ready to do that because the situation you're in doesn't lend itself. Like, don't create a problem until you actually have one. Is kind of my, part of my point there that I was thinking about. So
Yes. So good. One thing I wanted to double click on there is you said this thing about so James Clear has the idea of like just in time learning versus just in case learning. Just in time learning is the way to do it. So I you're motivated inherently to solve the problem when you're solving it for a real client, you're actually going to learn how to use it a lot better versus saying, okay, I have some time on the calendar. Let's read some documentation. You're going to retain it a lot better if you're actually doing it. The other thing you said there too is I think it's the stupidest thing ever when people say, yeah, when people approach you and say, like, hey, this is, or when they try and force their own tools on other people, because by nature of just knowing the context of how people got started, and also the fact that, okay, if someone's using a different tool, why would you fight them on which is better and not lean into seeing like how can this actually help me or how can this person be a referral partner? Because if we all do the same thing and we all use the same tool stack to get the same outcome, what's the point of even there being more than one of us, you know? That's part of
I
what we go ahead.
no, I would just say that I largely agree with what you're saying. I would just put a nuance to it because I put nuance to everything. The
Mhm,
nuance for me, and again, I think of it in the WordPress context, but it could be any tool. If you're comparing 2 tools, right? Like if you're saying like if you've 2 people, because this does happen in WordPress all the time, people get passionate and they're like, "Oh, Bricks, Elementor, this, whatever, it doesn't matter." If you're comparing 2 tools, I would like to marry what I just said with a secondary statement about actual objectivity and fact. 2 tools, if you look at like one feature of 2 tools, you could easily say that one is better than the other. Okay, that like we can't lose sight of logic, reason, and objectivity. Like if one tool can put a border radius, I'm gonna make a ridiculous example. If one tool can like change fonts and the other one can't, okay, it's ridiculous, but this does happen. Just think of it in any sort of tool, right? If in one tool you can click one button and change the font, and the other tool you have to like literally inject some code or do something extra, right? Like a little bit harder. Then the
mhm,
one tool is easier to use and could be better to use, right? That doesn't mean though that like you should just switch. If you had that mentality, you would constantly be switching because you'd constantly be looking for the thing that's the best or the most
mhm.
feature rich or whatever. But
Right.
realistically, if you looked at all these tools, there's some overlap, like the standard stuff. Okay, like again, like something like the switching text, obviously, typography or whatever. That's probably inherently everywhere, right? But like there's a lot of things it's like you have to decide on what kinds of projects you're going to be doing or what kind of clients you're going to be servicing, and then you have to just pick the tool that you think is right for them and is going to make
Mhm,
your life the easiest based on what you do. If you don't do a ton of crazy dynamic data or crazy conditional logic and things like that, and you're much more you want like the easiest design interface possible, then I don't know, maybe Framer is the one that that is the place to go, right?
mhm,
um I would say again, I'm biased slightly. I think objectively WordPress is the best ecosystem and the most robust overall. But if I told you right now to go learn WordPress, you would literally waste a year of your life like trying to figure
mhm,
out all of the options that are in there. So it's like, who am I to tell you to go possibly ruin your business for a year while you go learn WordPress? Like maybe it ends up being better long term, or maybe you could have just made a bunch of money building websites in Framer and Webflow or whatever. You know what I mean? I'm
mhm.
not saying you
Yeah.
particular and specifically Andy, but I'm just saying anybody. Like
Yeah, you are.
that's it's not it's people paint this as like an easier situation than it is. It's really not like that straightforward. It's very personalized.
Yeah. Well, I'm lucky because I don't get emotional about tools, um,
Mhm.
like you guys in the WordPress space do. But no, I'm just kidding. So yeah, that context does help a lot. I think it's just general understanding of and kind of the point I was making there at the end was recognizing people that if someone's making a recommendation for a tool, like listen to them. You know what I mean? Like have the conversations. Like, okay, if
Yeah.
they're saying this thing can genuinely benefit me, trust your own filter of whether or not it's a productive use of your time or whether it adds value to your clients. But you'd be stupid to say like, okay, this is something that I think can help you, and you're just like, no, I'm so set in my own ways. I don't even want to explore that. Like I think there's use in dabbling in other tools to see you just have to have that line, that hard line in the sand of like, okay, this is my default and everything outside of it is exploratory. And also maybe cap your time in terms of how long you're spending learning something that isn't inherent to the project you're actually working on. So we've probably lost people, lost people like going really in the weeds there. Um, but Yeah, I do agree, and um, I think people just need to have the conversation as to where people come from when opinions get formed. Because, like I said, what the state you're in when you start using something is so impressionable, and people don't weight that enough. Like, people spend, I think it was Naval Ravikant, he said something like, "You people spend 30 seconds making a decision and a whole lifetime on the outcome, like, facing the punishment from it, facing the repercussions of it." I think he was talking about it in terms of geographic location. Like, people spend a month finding out where they want to live, and then you realize it's like one of the biggest decisions you could ever make in terms of how it actually influences your trajectory of your career, your business, your life. Just think how impressionable you are when you first start using something and think, okay, maybe the research piece of choosing what I'm going to be spending a lot of time in is worth more upfront time investment, more upfront research than just diving in and trying to solve the problem right away. So I'll add that last flavor. But I want to double quick circle back around to the goal setting, personal brand side of what you're doing. You, first of all, for any of the listeners, you post a daily video. And there's a couple things I want to talk to you about these sort of maybe off recording, but you not only inspired me to do the same thing, but I want to talk about like how you view your content, and we've already talked about this too, but how you view your content and your overall brand. Why is it something that you're drawn to, and what do you want it to be when you talk about everything that you do, agency, content wise, and also for people that are listening, if they want to start making their own content. What talk to me about the role content plays in your current life and your vision and goals moving forward.
Yeah, I'm kind of a weirdo. I just, like I said earlier, 5, 6 years ago when I was driving to work, I would just like feel inclined and kind of called to just like put my camera up on my dash and and just point it at my face and just start talking, and nobody was listening. But it doesn't, even now, like I wouldn't say my audience is very large. I know more people, and it's grown, but even these daily videos, like, they don't get, like, a ton of engagement. Like, it's not like we're blowing up here yet, okay? But I'm trying to make a point that I don't know what it is about me. I just love to talk. I love to document the thoughts that I have. I'm constantly kind of like this is gonna sound dramatic, but, like, I'm psychoanalyzing a lot, like, I'm thinking about, like, my thoughts, I'm thinking about my actions, I'm thinking about where I wanna go, I'm thinking about life, I'm constantly reacting to things that I see too, like, internally, and I've learned over time that even if nobody listens, which people will listen, that's don't be afraid of that. Even if nobody listened, though, as long if you're talking and, like, if I'm putting it out there, I'm still happy. Like, it's kinda weird. Like, I don't really
Mm.
get I when people comment and they like, I'm excited, whatever, but and I'll always comment back and, appreciative and be appreciative, but I'm not really doing it for that in that realm, and I think that's, like, kind of the purest form of content creation because you're kinda just putting it out there and trying to improve it over time with, like, hooks and all this other shit, but ultimately, that's really where it comes from. So I actually don't have if you ask me, for instance, like, why do you do it? It's really just because I love doing that. I don't know exactly why. Same time, though, I realize that loving that is such an unbelievable advantage because a lot of people don't love it and then they try to force it. And it's difficult because everybody feels like they need to do it. So to your point and your question about like what role does it play in my life, plays a really big role because I've gone through phases, but now I'm actually like fully bought in. Like I have to, especially with these daily videos, it's been such a good way to like kind of train that muscle of just talking every single day. Cause I would go through points before I started doing this like 110 days ago or whatever. Like I would like post something and then I'd wait a few days. And I'll tell you this, like this is no shit. Okay, when I would do that, when I would go days without creating content, I would physically feel different. I'm not trying to be melodramatic when I say this. Like, I would physically feel different. I would feel more depressed when I don't put more out into the world. So, I don't have a full answer for you as to why that is. It's just that is what it is. So, it's a big part of my life. I try to use it for my personal brand side of things to keep stay highly visible, to keep annoying people on their feeds and remind them that I am moving through life and I'm updating them. And secondarily, I the thing I haven't done very well is I haven't done it to drive business, because my content has always by nature kind of been, I don't want to say vlog style, but it's been kind of a little bit of sporadic. It's been like learn, try, and share kind of anything I do. I have some ideas moving into the future where more of my content, at least certain channels, will be highly directed and highly pointed towards people that ultimately I want to pay me money. So, and I think that that'll be a really good experiment, a really good blend. I think it's going to have a lot of success because I'm now at the point where I can use that skill to, almost as an, not really an outreach, but like as an outward facing marketing tactic more than I have in the past.
Yeah, man. I mean, I want to challenge you a little bit to
Yeah.
think about it not so much as being more targeted. And obviously, it's important to talk about what you do, but more than anything, man, content is a conversation starter. I think the most productive use of your time, especially when you're doing such a good job of keeping top of mind, is a follow up to people that raise their hands and say, "Hey, I like what you put out there." You're giving people all of these different little ledges to grab on and start a conversation. And I think that's your biggest advantage is when you get someone one to one, is then you can more accurately understand how you can serve them, how you can help them. And that's really what that's all sales is making friends and then positioning something that you do that's valuable to them. And you're in a position to where you can do that. So I think it is important to also have a reminder of like, hey, this is who I am and what I do, so that it can start the outreach, on a more productive, you hit the ground running a little bit from a sales perspective. But I think you have 90% of the problem already solved. I think sort of the unsexy, unglamorous truth that I had to learn too is, um, and my content is not nearly on the production quality or scale or level that yours is, but I started seeing a lot better results when even just going back on past content, looking at comments and saying, "Hey, appreciated that you responded to that. What's up with you? Like, how are you doing?" And then those inherently go a lot deeper, and that's especially in a very product or customized service offering like we both do, long sales cycle, having more deeper relationship with a bigger amount of people is really how you start to make content one to one effective given what our offer is. If it's not just like a off the shelf product or a B2C sort of offering, that's sort of the hardest side to learn because it's not fun. Like the fun part is making the content and being creative and putting your thoughts out there and getting the feedback. It is the comments, it is the likes, it is the creativity you can put behind the craft and the packaging. But going a little bit deeper and scheduling calls with those people that just give little signals of interest. It's like a little spark. And I think it's on us to like when we make content to keep those sparks going and then expands more from there. Which is it's just my perspective having made not a high level of content, but starting from, but making it more business productive and making actual sales and revenue come from it. So, talk to me about you said you do a lot of brand partnerships, and that's how you want to maybe make content a bigger piece of the puzzle moving forward. Why pursue brand partnerships? Why is that something that excites you, and why is that on the radar for you?
It's a good question. So I would say I don't actually know if I pursued it per se. I started making the content, got connected with more people. People start reaching out to see if you want to make video. It's really normally it's videos, like not when, especially when you're at a smaller channel size of like almost 6,000 subscribers. Like you're not generating huge big boy numbers of like MKBHD or anything crazy. Like they want what happens, especially in WordPress. I'll give you the lowdown. These companies don't have like normally like in-house marketing. Maybe they do have marketing people, but they don't have a good internal way to create videos or um that's sort of an oversimplification. Like maybe they do create media, but they want like other people on the internet making videos about their stuff. Makes sense, right? Like
Mhm.
it's marketing. Like they want people to type in XYZ plugin or whatever, and then it show up and it be on like my channel, right? So they're willing to pay
Mhm.
for that. Sometimes not a lot. And honestly, like I go back to what I was saying earlier, when the thing doesn't align with my authenticity and the things that I use and whatever, like you'll just get a ton of people asking you about this as soon as you establish some sort of authority in the space. And it's really hard to say no to because it's money. Um, but that happened to me, and I was like, okay, I'll take some of these, and I've just learned more about myself. It's not really anything about the products per se. It's really just more so that like everything that I do, I need to be extremely true to me. Because if I'm not, then I just feel like shit, and then the audience knows, and then I know, and then the brand suffers. So it's not good.
Mhm.
The brand partnership specifically, that is kind of like the quintessential next step once you start to get like on YouTube and you make money from ads, like you get monetized, you start making pennies from that. And then the next thing is like, okay, how do I make money from this? Like, oh, this is fun. Like I'm making videos. How do I make money from this though? Because I'm making a bunch of content. I need to make money. And then that's when you get into that trap. And
Mm,
it's not a trap for everyone. It's not the worst thing in the world. It is very doable, but it depends on who you are and how you operate and what you are comfortable with. And I'm just not. I am comfortable with some of it. I'm just not comfortable with all of the things that I've kind of like, navigated so far. And it's just always a learning
mm,
experience there. So, but that is
yeah.
how I got into it because, it's just kind of a natural progression. I feel like once you start having any small amount of success on YouTube.
I think you're in a position now to where you can more control who, like, it's not the thing that's paying the majority of your bills. So you're in a really good position now, especially given your current goals and like looking at your current daily schedule and some of the tasks that go into like the morning doing outreach to brands and stuff like that. I think you're in a position now to where, okay, I am only taking on brand deal if it is this company that I really get psyched up about and hyped by. There's a company that I never considered myself a content creator until or like really understand firsthand like what the impact of brand partnerships and what like a really good one could actually look like until I saw myself actually recommending a tool without any incentive. Like I just had a really good experience. Like the tool that comes to mind is Senja. It's like this testimonial gathering platform. Um, and it is so cool, dude. Like I made like 3 posts about it because it made like my website, made our clients' websites look so much better. And I was literally doing that just because it was content that made my business look better because I build websites. I took a step back. I was like, wow, like I could actually be a really good partner for them. And I think a lot of people start with that perverse incentive, the same with the monetary thing we were talking about in the beginning with the agency, is that you think like I want to the spark for action is getting the partnership in the first place and not is this something that makes sense. Um, I think I mean, especially in someone that is in your seat that has the opportunity to actually make it a substantial revenue source and, position for you in the future. I think that's really cool that you have more control in terms of who you can work with. So, and also that you maybe have learned through maybe bad past partnerships that it wasn't something that you want to take more time in to do right. So, um, yeah, content wise, is there anything that I haven't said about WordPress and its current environment? Are you getting any signals from me that I maybe misunderstand a little bit in terms of the WordPress community, given my bias and where I'm from? Is there anything that we haven't touched on?
I mean, between our last conversation over on my podcast and here, I would just say that like, you are 24 years old. I feel like you said you've used WordPress a little bit. I think the objective answer is there's no way in hell that you know enough about WordPress. Like I don't know enough about WordPress. Like Matt Mullenweg maybe doesn't even know enough about like you know what I mean. Like on the whole like none of us know everything. Um, and that's totally okay because again you're using the thing that makes sense for you. I'll just throw this in here right now. Maybe we can manifest this.
Yeah,
I was thinking about
sorry,
this as we were talking about this earlier. It would be really, really cool, I think, for definitely for my audience, and I think possibly for your audience too. I think they would get something out of this. Is if you and I sat down, I'm just envisioning this right now. You and I sat down, virtually like this, and we just had a conversation an hour or so or whatever where we kind of basically try to I don't know the exact angle, but almost try to sell each other on the platforms that we use because like I know again from my side of like understanding WordPress really heavily, there's a lot of things that I could show you that be like you'd probably be like, "Oh shit, I didn't even realize WordPress was like this. I didn't know you could use tools in WordPress like this. I thought it was code heavy or I thought it was only blocks or whatever. Like it wasn't visual in any sort of way. I'm not. I'm just guessing there. So like I guarantee you, it would open your mind for certain things. And I think really, really, really interestingly, for the people that watch me that like are heavily into WordPress that just have a terrible mindset on like other low code platforms, it would be really interesting for you to try to sell me on like a Webflow or a Framer. I feel like a lot of people kind of have seen those because they're like sexier, they're flashier, they have more advertisements. But like I would
Mhm.
love to know how you actually utilize them. And this is really where the rubber meets the road here, right?
Yeah.
Is you literally this could be as simple as you show me one or two websites that you've built, like your most impressive ones that you would say with Webflow or Framer or what have you. And then again, doesn't matter. This isn't a competition, this is to understand what types
Definitely.
of websites you build. You understand what I'm saying? Like, this is really important. This is to understand what types of websites you are building. Like, what kinds of features are on there? Like, are they mostly design centric and not a lot of like dynamic data or anything like that going on? Are they membership platforms? Are they this? Are they that? Like, that's the thing that we have kind of gotten messed up with as a whole community is that a
Yeah.
website is so that is such a loaded word at this point, like a
Yes.
website. There's so many different forms that that could take, and it's just because there's so many platforms now, especially that do different things and they're focused on certain different things. And, in WordPress land, people if you understand WordPress, you understand that WordPress has the capability to do all of those different things. So it's like we have a different perspective on that.
Mhm.
So I'll get off the soapbox there. I'm not trying to pitch WordPress. I'm just saying that it would be really enlightening and eye opening for a lot of WordPress people if you showed me, like, again, like your couple best websites and we just kind of went through and just saw, like, okay, how did you do these things? What was it like? And what is like the main feature set that you're doing? Because maybe
Mhm.
that is maybe the tooling you're using is exactly the right tooling for you and you never run
Mhm.
up against any blockers, and it's perfect. Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
my
I
thought.
think that we do that. We talk through like why we chose and why we think the avenue that we like talk through a decision process between why we chose this stack and connect that to a
Mhm.
project and also maybe connect it to a sample brief that's like between both of
Yeah,
us and say what we would do to solve it or what we would do, what we would put together. And then I think that'll more speak to itself which is more like efficient, productive. Because I think the recommendations that we're always going to be biased by like what we're always going to create a better product with our tool stack for brief, right? So it'll be easy, it'll be really interesting to see like um what would come out of that. That'd be a really productive conversation actually.
yeah,
So
let's do it.
um round 3 for sure. But yeah,
Mhm,
for the listeners, if they've stuck around this long,
mhm,
and not dropped off,
mhm,
with our in the weeds side, like, dude, I
mhm,
want to first of all say, like, you are um, especially recently in terms of my mental state, excitement about what I do, and just your response to the stuff that I put out there too. And I know we've only had a couple conversations, but I'm very energized by people that are like you, transparent, showing what they're doing, because it kind of validates my own core values. And I've seen that a lot from you as well. And I guarantee you, without a shadow of a doubt, you are going to be, we both are, but you are going to be so successful given like your habits, your intuitions, your taste. Um, and I see nothing but up and to the right for you. So, for any of the listeners, tell them, where they can find you, continue the conversation, and we can land the plane there.
Andy, I appreciate it, man. Right back at you as well. Super stoked. Yeah, I mean, and for you guys, thank you so much for listening. If you want to head over to just mjs.bio, you can find all my links there. It's kind of like the link tree equivalent. All my socials and everything I got going on is there. Main platform is YouTube, and like I said, looking forward to seeing you guys over there. Andy, appreciate this, man. Thank you so much for having me.